So, according to the July 2008 Stats Canada figures of real per capita spending on public schools, the average expenditure in Canada has increased by $47 per capita compared to only $2 per capita in BC. Yet the BC government claims that education funding is still increasing to the highest level ever. Highest ever level. As an elected MLA, what will you do to advocate for more funding for public education? And I'm going to have Ron start this time.
Well, education is one of the things that we believe should be funded.
Use the mic? Oh.
Sure. Education.
Did you turn it off?
There goes my education.
Try that. Try again.
How's that?
There we go. There we go.
Education is one of the few things we believe that should be funded better, although Liberals have built 7 universities in their time. While creating more colleges may sound like a good idea, we really need to create a world-class university that attracts students as a place to go and ensure that they can afford it. And we should also provide an incentive for students as they're working their way through to college and giving them the opportunity to earn their way into university. Thank you.
This way.
Thank you. The challenges facing public education are significant and deepening. Like many parents in this province, I'm anxious about school boards forced to slash their budgets because of insufficient funding by the Ministry of Education. Budget cuts translate into overcrowded classrooms, insufficient funds to meet the needs of special needs students, and short-sighted cuts in arts, music, and sports. Not to mention inadequate cleaning and maintenance funding and delays in seismic upgrading, and of course school closures. Carol James and the NDP, my party, would begin to deal with these challenges by making education a priority. It is time to fix the funding formula so that all school districts have the certainty they need to make long-term decisions. We are committed to working with school boards, local communities, education professionals, parents and others to keep schools open and programs funded. We are committed to giving every child the educational opportunities they need to grow and succeed.
Yeah, I think $2 per capita funding increase is unacceptable. I think it should be above the Canadian average of $47. The question is, where would we get the money from? Well, the Liberals have wasted $9 billion overruns on the Olympics. They've wasted $400 million on the convention center. They built a transit system, so this was supported by the NDP, to the airport for over $1 billion when they could have built a West Coast Express-style train on existing tracks going through Kerrisdale for $300 million. So if we were more responsible with the money, we could spend more on education because the children are worth it, to be quite frank with you. And you know, we could move the money and spend it more efficiently without having to raise taxes. So that's my position on that. It's a disappointment to me also that Balmoral School is going to be closing down. Meanwhile, the Liberals are spending all kinds of money on government fat. They're raising salaries of senior public bureaucrats while they're making class sizes for teachers bigger. This is unacceptable and it must change. Thank you.
I really liked what the NDP candidate in West Vancouver, Capilano, had to say last Thursday about every kid should be able to walk to school. School should be a community center. And I really don't like what I'm hearing about all the schools closing down on the North Shore. We need to find an alternative to the per-student funding because it's not working. The best way to find how schools need to be funded is to ask the professionals that work in that field. And that's what we'd like to do. And also make a plan for the long term, because every dollar that is spent on education saves $7 in social remedial costs. And that's important to remember. There's also the problem of colleges. I think there's a big gap in BC between high school and university. I'm presently in a private college, continuing my education to be a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine, paying $10,000 a year. I'm not getting $2,000 worth. It's sad. It's sad that colleges are private companies. I'm on the 3rd floor of a building, and we share the bathrooms with the dentist. There's no better alternative if you want to study to become a doctor of traditional medicine. It's one of the best schools in BC. There's a lot that we can do for professional trades, and we need to address this issue in BC. How do we want to train the trades of the future? And I think colleges are the solution.
Mine is a question of, in BC, we're being told by the candidates that BC is only increasing the per capita amount per student by $2. But what is the actual amount in each province? That's the crunch, not how much extra is being put in. Where are our amounts compared with, say, Quebec? Is it underfunded compared with Quebec? Is it equally funded compared with Quebec? We can't just name a figure as being BC underfunds compared with other provinces until we know the actual amount that is spent. And if I may continue, tax increases are always unpopular. And if we're going to put more money in, it doesn't mean we'll get a better product. We throw money at the medical scheme. Is it better than it used to be? How do we know? Those are my concerns.
I'll take a stab at that because currently our funding formula is based on a per capita arrangement. For every student that attends a school, the school board receives a certain amount of money. And when you have declining enrollment, and I'll talk about that in a little bit here, then the school boards, has to accommodate the reduction in funding. So what we want to do in the NDP is look at stable long-term funding that finds or achieves a different formula, so we are not in a situation where school boards are forced to cut those very budgets that are meant to provide the enriched education that we cherish and hope for our children. So if you look at the fact that not only is the decline in enrollment due to some of the demographic trending, we've got a growing aging population, and we also have a shrinking young population. What we all have with our public school system, we have a bit of an exodus of students out of our catchment area, into to other schools, private or independent, and with them goes the funding, and then we get back into this vicious cycle of cuts that I talked about earlier. And when you cut programs in your public school system, it becomes less desirable, and it becomes a slippery slope. So I think we have to look at that funding formula over again, but we also have to recommit to the priority of education for our children provincially, and that means setting that above other mega pet projects that our Premier is currently embarked on. It's time to invest in our human capital, and this is a priority for Carol James and the NDP.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing in the school system is the Americanization of our public education system, where class sizes are getting larger, special ed kids are being placed into regular classes without the appropriate supports. Nurses are being cut in the schools, sports programs are being cut, arts are being cut. And if we go down this path, we're going to be like California, where some cities have 40% of the school children going to private schools. You've got Catholic schools that are bursting at the seams, and a lot of kids that are going to the Catholic schools are not even Catholic. But the public schools have deteriorated so much that this is what's happening. So we don't want a situation like that. We must fund our education better. We must be accountable. And also there's a lot of bureaucrats in the Ministry of Education. And we could cut the bureaucrats and expand the number of teachers that we have. Thank you.